the energy industry stakeholders working to finding ways to mitigate against load shedding. The Localisation Support Fund just about to conclude its roundtable discussions on the issue. Our business reporter Ntokozo Khumalo has been following discussions, and let's try and link up with her once again. Ntokozo, good morning to you. So try and give us the key takeaways from the discussions around the Localisation Support Fund.
Hi, Goli. Well, I do have with me LSF's program manager, Sichaba Zubela, who was part of really the work that was put into this study, opportunities identified to improve capacity and localize. But a lot of factors go into that, including demand from Eskom. Talk us through that.
Sure. So it's important to understand that for manufacturers to secure their investments and make the capital available in order to base their manufacturing firms here, they need to be certain about the demand that's going to be available for the products that they produce to be taken up by not only the main utility, Eskom, but the other regional utilities. So it's important that that demand certainty is there so that people are able to project their investment requirements, invest appropriately, and ensure that the manufacturing sector is sustainable from that perspective.
And we are taking sort of baby steps with this whole localization drive within the industry, focusing on particular components around transmission and distribution. Talk us through why we are taking that stance of things as opposed to a complete overhaul of the industry.
Well, the industry is a very complex industry, and we need to be able to pick our winners. There are certain areas where we have niche capabilities as a country, and these are the areas that we should seek to leverage on in order to catalyze that manufacturing capability. So it's important to choose those areas where the capability exists so that we can increase the scale of capability that will ensure that we are able to manufacture competitively and therefore make the case for more in manufacturing investment in support of the T&D infrastructure network.
And Sichaba, there are several factors that could still hinder that localization policy and localization drive. One of those being the issues around cheap imports for manufacturers, but also load shedding itself. So how do we sort of fast track us moving towards getting that diversified energy mix, but also still keeping those job losses to a minimum, and also making sure that the local players do have that demand to sustain their business in the long haul? Obviously, we are not going to see that end to load shedding by December, but how do we start fast tracking then once we've identified some of those bottlenecks that are there when it comes to localization?
Yeah, I think it's important to appreciate that this effort to solve the energy crisis requires a collaborative approach across industry, across the private sector, and across civic organization. And I think it's important for all the relevant stakeholders to sit down to ensure that there is a policy framework that supports the type of interventions that will ensure that people are able to make their investments in local manufacture. Without that being secured, it's going to be very difficult. As we are exploring different opportunities to secure the energy of manufacturing, it's important to also realize that unless there is an impetus for people to see that the investment is necessary, the drive is necessary, we need to ensure that the relevant players sit together, develop the right framework from a policy perspective, from an innovation development, skills development perspective, from a funding perspective, and to also take into consideration what the experiences of the manufacturers, whether it's the availability of raw materials at the right price or at the right quality, and what are the particular interventions that we can do to ensure that they are able to source materials that are able to support their manufacturing operations.
Sichaba, thank you so much for talking to us. Of course, that is Sichaba Zubela, who is the program manager at LSF, talking us through just the findings out of that study. Probably a lot of work needing to be done in order for local manufacturers to really boost their capacity and boost their investments that they make into their manufacturing activities. That demand from Eskom being important, and other variables also around, the issue of cheap imports. So just some of those key takeaways, and we will have more details on that later on once we've actually looked through the report. So viewers can look out for that a little bit later on this evening. It is back to you once again, Goli, for now.
Thank you very much. Ntokozo Khumalo there, our business reporter, monitoring those discussions around the LSF.